Okay, for this session I'm working on MPDInfoScreen2 because I think I figured out a bug that I actually fixed by the end of this session. So to start with, I have to say that when using TCP or Unix sockets, I enabled non-blocking I/O on them. By default, if you call read on a TCP socket or a Unix socket, it waits until data is received and then it continues on the rest of the code. But the problem with that is if you only have one thread, it's going to pause that thread waiting for the read to resolve. Non-blocking I/O makes the read return immediately if there's nothing to read. And you can tell that there's nothing to read because it also sets a flag, the error number. So I used non-blocking I/O in MPDInfoScreen2, and my recent shower thoughts the other day was, since I'm using Unix sockets, what if that's causing some non-blocking I/O stop reads when it should have still waited for more reads to continue because it's faster than a TCP socket. So to do this, I go into the code where I use non-blocking I/O, where I read data from the socket, and I decided to add a check that if it's loading binary data, that it fetches the already loaded part of the code, not code, already loaded part of the text from the data from the MPD. Usually if it sends binary data, there's a line that says binary colon and then a number and then a new line. So I can check that to get the number of bytes that's supposed to be sent. Previously there was no check to see if that amount of bytes was sent already. So basically today's work, I've added a check for that amount of bytes to be received. That makes it more robust, and it actually fixed the bug. So I've basically spoilered my entire session in the past few seconds, minutes, but that's basically what I did here. I went to the part of the code that handled reading binary data from MPD, and I added a check to get the binary size. Since in the MPD protocol, it always tells you the binary size before telling you the binary data itself, which is nice. So here I'm setting up code to load the binary size count so that later on I can continue the read if the binary size amount wasn't reached yet. Some weird handling of string substring. I have to get the number and its position in the data that was read, which is IDX plus 8. And then I have to also get the length of that substring I want, which is up to end IDX. So it's end IDX minus IDX plus 8, or without parentheses, minus IDX minus 8. Basically the substring of just the number in the binary size sent by MPD. This is important because earlier in the lifetime of MPDInfoScreen2, it actually sends a request to MPD to send a larger amount of chunks of data per binary chunk. In other words, if you request data from MPD that's a binary data, you can first request a specific size per chunk if it can't send all of it in a single chunk. And I set the chunk to about a little bit less than a megabyte. So naturally, some album art images are larger than a megabyte. So I would have to request album art from position 0, get almost 1 megabyte of data, and then while I haven't gotten the full amount yet, request more data until it's fully resolved. And part of the protocol, when you ask for album art data, It also tells you the total size of the album art. It's part of the specification you can find online for MPD. Naturally, there's some error checking just in case the parsing of the binary size goes wrong. And here I realize I should probably load the binary size before the loop starts. Otherwise, I would be loading at every iteration that it checks the binary size. So I set up an optional, which is a relatively new C++ thing. C++11, I'm not sure if C++11 has optional, but I'm pretty sure later on they added optional, which works like Rust's option stuff, but different, kind of. Essentially the same functionality though. Now that I've set up the code to get the binary size, I need to add code to check if the amount of data read is at least the binary size that it should have sent. Thankfully, end IDX is the exact index of the new line before the data being sent. So end IDX plus 1 is the start of the binary data received from MPD. IDX short for index. Now, I realize this could run forever if it never gets enough bytes. So I add a timestamp variable to check if too much time has passed so that it would time out. It's a possibility of an infinite loop. So I add a timeout variable, a timestamp variable, so I can ensure that it doesn't infinite loop on me. Takes a while for me to do it properly because I haven't worked with timestamps in a while. So when you have a generic struct, you add the type of the generic after the less than, greater than, or left angle bracket, right angle bracket. But if you have two right angle brackets together, it looks like a shift right operation in C++. Old versions of C++ will treat that as the operator shift right by this amount of bits. So it's not really necessary anymore with newer C++ compilers, or newer compiler versions, but it feels cleaner to separate the right angle brackets with the white space. So I need to get a duration from the current timestamp. And what I do is I query a now timestamp minus the recorded timestamp of when the binary size was loaded. That gives me a duration. And if the duration is greater than a certain amount, then I know that the connection is timed out. At this point, this code is ready to go. So it's just about done. So this is testing. Again, it's a graphical program, and Asciinema hasn't recorded the graphical program, just the output in the terminal. At this point, I decide to add some print lines so that it's working as I expected, because ever since I added these features, these changes in, it's been rock solid, and seeing that it actually tries to continue, it would be a way for me to know for certain that it's working as intended. So I add a few print lines with debug level verbosity, log levels. So as you can see, it actually hit that part of the code. And it works. It loads the almart. There's no problems. At this point, it's over. Yeah, I'm basically done with this feature, this bug fix, making it more robust. So, the rest of this is just a little bit of testing, then a little bit of git commit wrangling, and then eventually pushing commits. So you don't really have to watch the rest of this anymore. I mean, yeah, that's basically it. The session was pretty short because I was able to hit the bug right away. It was a lucky guess, but I had a lot of shower thoughts yesterday, so that probably helped a lot. Thanks for watching.